get your bell rung. I am your favorite host in the podcast world. I'm KG, and with me tonight, all the way from Dudleyville, we have they Chubby Dudley Ragney. Is that right?
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. You know, I see the way your last name is spelled, and the Italian that I don't have in me wants to try to get how fancy with it.
And to be technical, if you really think about it, Dudleyville is probably in Italy
Yeah, yeah.
because
I
I think all the brothers were Italian except Devon
no.
and Spike.
Yep, and do you know for sure that Devon's not Italian? I mean,
You never
and
know.
well, you answered one of the first questions, which was, "Where's Dudleyville?" I'll take that. So where is in Italy? And my second question: you were known as Chubby Dudley, from
Mhm.
what I read, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It was because of your size, but I had to do a timeout for a second because Bubba Dudley was no skinny man himself. So, why you? Why did they name you Chubby Dudley instead of you being Bubba Dudley? Vice versa.
Maybe because I couldn't stutter as good. I don't know, but um, when I met with Paul to be brought back in as a Dudley, Stevie Richards hooked up the meeting with me and Paul, and we met in the hotel lobby at their old hotel that they used to stay at before the infamous Travel Lodge, the old Philly Marriott, and I was in the lobby with Richards and we were talking, and Paul came walking up, and before anything was said, he was like, "Oh my God, another fucking Dudley!" And Richards was like, "This is the guy I was telling you about." So Paul says to me, "Do you have a tie dye?" I said, "No." He's like, "Get a tie dye." He's like, "What do you want your gimmick to be?" And I always wanted to do like a gorgeous Jimmy Garvin uh, type style gimmick. I always loved that gimmick. I wanted to come out and be able to fluff my hair and say
Right.
it's not my fault, something like that. So I said to him, "Studley Dudley," and he looked at me. He's like, "No, bring food. You're Chubby Dudley." Now that's how it started. Now I come to find out within the last few weeks, after this whole resurgence of stuff I've been involved in the last year with the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance and stuff like that. My friendship with Todd Gordon has rekindled, and we've become very, very good close friends. And he tells me the whole fat guy, chubby gimmick came from him and Paul used to sit on the phone at night and have like booking meetings as they were smoking joints, getting high together over the phone, and they started coming up with all these crazy Dudley gimmicks. And they were like, "Oh, we'll have a fat guy, and he'll be like at the concession stand eating." And I'm like, "Thanks, thanks. That's what you came up with for me. That's what I fell into was the fat guy."
Well, what's crazy about that though is going back to Bubba Dudley. I get the Bubba, the whole stutter thing, but
Mhm.
if I remember correctly, Bubba was bigger than what you were.
Oh yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Bubba had a good
I'm not talking about height
easy.
either. I'm
No,
talking about
but all the way around. I mean, he
right.
had a good 3-4 inches on me, height wise, and I mean, he was probably like I at the time. I'm the same I am now. I'm about 315, 320, and he was probably I bet you pushing 350.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, I tell you what, you both look great. You both really do. Uh, Bubba, there's some guys out there, right, that they can't carry weight. I mean, and that's just
Oh,
being
okay.
honest.
Yeah.
Man, people like you and Bubba, and even Devon at a certain point in his career. I mean, you guys didn't look like bad guys having that weight that you guys had on you. Yeah, we know that, as I do, enjoy our food, but at the same time, you had the broad shoulders where you looked like you
Yeah.
were working out as well. So you guys didn't look sloppy at all.
At the time, I mean, I was working out at the time, just not like I was. I would go to the gym and work out. I also owned a wrestling school at the time too, so I was working out all the time, 4 or 5 nights a week, and I was in the ring 4 or 5 nights a week training. And then after training, we would go to the bar and drink like lunatics and eat like crazy. So like it all canceled itself out.
Right, right. And by chance, if your brother Bubba Dudley should have to see this podcast, if you take offense for me, Bubba calling you a little large, give me a call. I'll have you on the podcast. You can trust me out, man. Whatever it takes.
You know what? I have not spoken to Bubba. It's at least 15, maybe even 20, probably
Wow.
about 20 years. I've spoken to D-Von. The first time in about 15 years was 6 years ago, right before I moved to Nashville from Philly. He was at a comic convention, so I went to go see him, and we talked for about an hour there. We exchanged numbers, and then he did my podcast I was doing at the time, and we did an interview, and then I went through divorce and relocation and everything, and I just like was again like at that point in my life, the chapter of wrestling was closed.
Right.
I never expected it to reopen, and then a few years ago it got reopened, and before I moved, I started doing a little bit of shows here and there, and then I was getting hit up for conventions, and then when I came to Nashville, it shut down again because of COVID and all that
Right.
stuff. But the last 2 years, it's exploded. I've been getting booked conventions. I was involved in the TWA reunion show where I was the booker, kind of the co-promoter, right-hand man to Joel Goodhart for that whole insanity that we worked on for a year, doing my podcast. And even like today, I got hit up earlier today. I got booked on a show in November, a toy show
Right.
out in Nashville. So it's just, all these things. But I've run into D-Von. It was actually about 9 months ago. We were both booked on a sports card show here in Nashville. So we hung out for 2 days bullshitting at the convention. But yeah, I mean, me and D-Von, we've talked, and there's no problem there. I don't know. As far as I know, there's no problem with Bubba. Who knows? I have no idea. I've said a lot of things over the years, but nothing negative, just truthful on my
Right.
feelings. But it was nothing insulting towards either one of them ever. And anything I've said in interviews, I've actually told
Right.
D-Von to his face. So
I'll tell you what, I had the opportunity of meeting D-Von about 2 months ago. Now, I'm new to this podcasting gig, right? Been doing it for 6, 7 months. I'm kind of, a wannabe wrestling journalism. I would love to get more into that. So I made friends with a gentleman by the name of Herb Simmons who owns SICW, and as well as he does a fan fest. Well, last 2 months ago was Fan Fest 3. My wife and I went. Now, I'm trying to be Mr. Professional, right? I don't want to mark out. I want people to come on my podcast.
right.
And I didn't want them to see what I was feeling on the inside, which was a little kid with a lot of these legends wanting to jump up and down, like, oh my gosh, you're so and so. So I Grace Man, Barbara Goodish, and Rosa Brudy's widow, and Darla Staggs, and the original Sonny from Glow Wrestling. They graciously welcomed me and my wife into this wrestling family for no reason. They kind of took us, and we're hanging out
Good
with
people.
them. Yeah, they are, and I'm hanging out with another guy that I made really good friends with, Joe Helms.
Know him.
The Silverback, indie guy, amazing interest. Matter of fact, sporting his shirt today. And we're sitting down, hanging out, talking, and at the table next to us sits down D-Von, and you could tell the man enjoys his privacy right off the bat. He's eating, didn't want to bother him. Well, I was making my rounds, talking to the different wrestlers, and Mr. Herb gave me permission to hand out my business card to get them from our podcast. And I don't know what I was expecting from D-Von, but for some reason, what I wasn't expecting was a guy that was going to be friendly. He just has that look about him. So, okay, D-Von, my name's Kevin, blah, blah, blah. Give him my card. Very politely, he tells me, you know what, man? You have to go through my manager to book me. And I went, Okay, I appreciate it, and I had made the comment to him that I loved watching them both in his single career as a professional wrestler and a tag team. Turn around and walk off, and he stopped me, said, "Come back here." He takes my phone, he goes to his own X account, and he finds information for his manager to make sure that I can find it. And I tell you, that was so gracious and kind of him to do that. So my I guess experience with him has really changed my mind about my perception of Devon because he does look like this guy that just doesn't want to be fucked with. He wants to be left alone. Such a nice guy. Very, very nice guy.
D-Von is much more approachable and respectful up front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where Bubba it will. I want to say standoffish, but I think cautious is maybe more the better word to use. But it's a cross between standoffish and cautious about when he's meeting people, especially when they're going to be coming in and asking you. And I'm sure
Right.
they get asked at every appearance they do. Will you do my podcast? Will you do
Right.
this? Will
Right.
you?
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then there's the fact that my co-host always yells at me for saying this, because obviously we need wrestling fans to subscribe to the podcast. But I like to tell the truth, and the fact of the matter is that today's wrestling fans are not the same as the yesteryear wrestling fans. This younger generation, not all of them, but a lot of them are absolutely a cancer to this business, because of the way they are. So I can understand why Bubba Dudley may be even a little standoffish when it comes to talking to fans, just because of the way a lot of these fans are nowadays. I mean, these guys are they're brutal when all they do is tear the business down and tear down the superstars within the business. I mean, have you had to deal with any of that from a lot of these quote unquote fans?
not really good because um, with me, not many people know me.
Wow, that's
So
surprising, man.
no, because you figure, I was there in the very early original inception of ECW as one of the Hell Riders. And then we were out. I was there from 92, 93. Was out in 93 and then brought back in 95 as a Dudley. And was there 95 for about a year, just over a year, almost a year and a half. 95, 96, I'm there as a Dudley. And that was before the Dudleys truly
Mhm.
exploded. So the true hardcore ECW people slightly know me, or the Philly area fans, they know me because on that I was in that scene and in the trenches with the fans and hanging out with them for years, partying with them. Um, but the average fan really don't know who I am, and people will be like, "Who the fuck's Chubby Dudley?" Like, why are you calling yourself Chubby Dudley? And
Right.
then I have to explain it. Or when I do appearances, the thing that sucks now is without the hair,
Hmm.
people don't realize it. It's hard, and then you got to explain, and then you got to show them pictures, and you know,
Right. Yeah, but look, um, I'm from Louisiana, right? And I was not. I knew exactly what ECW, who they were, from
mhm.
reading from the early years of some internet that you were able to get. But I can't say that I was a hardcore ECW fan because it was not available to me in my area. Couldn't really watch it, but yet
Right.
I knew who Chubby Dudley was. Matter of fact, when I came across your name, I knew exactly who you were, and that's why it surprises me that you aren't recognized as much as what I think that you should. Because, like I said, I caught a couple of. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever watched ECW live. It was either through VHS
Mhm.
or the fake ECW when they were part of WWE.
And I've never seen that stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, but I want to go back because I can tell that you and I could have very easy conversations because we've already spent 15 minutes talking. I want to go back to your childhood. What type of childhood did you have? And were you a wrestling fan?
Okay, childhood. I was. It's weird to talk. My father died when I was 4 years old,
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
It was me, my mom, and my mom's parents moved in with us after my father passed away. So I did not know wrestling until I was about 10 years old. I had no idea what wrestling was. In those early years, all I knew or cared about was Evil Knievel, Planet of the Apes, and the Philadelphia Eagles. They were and Speed Racer. That's
Mhm.
all I gave a shit about. I wanted to be an ape in the Mach 5, jumping a motorcycle over fucking trucks. That's all I fucking cared about. So, um, growing up, like every few months, me and my mom would go spend a weekend at. We would rotate like aunts and uncles' houses for the weekend in South Philly. So and each house had cousins my age. So getting to hang out with my cousins, and just one night, me and my cousin Joey were we would be sitting in the kitchen, either playing video games or playing with our action figures or reading comic books or drawing comic book stuff. And I would hear my uncle always hollering at the TV. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on out there? Like it was like kind of freaking. I never like heard people hollering at the TV like this. So finally, like one Saturday evening, I walked out there to see what the hell was going on, and he would be sitting in his chair in the corner in his recliner, and he's hollering. And I look at the TV, and I see these guys chewing on bones. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I was like mesmerized. I couldn't believe what I'm watching. And I like sat down, and my uncle's like cowering. He's looking at me. Can you believe this? And I have no idea what's going on. Well, it turns out they were the Moondogs. And
Ah,
the Moondogs changed my life because I see grown men eating bones like a dog. I'm like, what is this? And I got sucked in. So after that, I started we didn't have cable. My mom couldn't afford cable, so we were just able to watch like Saturday morning
mhm.
WWF. So I started watching that, and then when I would go to the supermarket with my mom, I would always buy like I would get like car magazines or even like 16 or Teen Beat because Kiss was in there. So I would get that, and then I started seeing wrestling magazines, and I was like, oh shit. So I started getting wrestling magazines, and I would bring him to school. My friends started like making fun of me. They're like, "Why are you watching wrestling? It's fake." I'm like, "What do you mean it's fake?" Like I couldn't believe. Like I had no idea. And then the funny thing was, fast forward 25 or 15 years in the future, and I'm wrestling, and I would go visit my aunt and uncle, and I would bring VHS tapes of my matches to show my uncle, and he would sit there and swear up and down. He's like, "Bay, you can't tell me that's fake." I'm like, Uncle Ralph, it's fake. No, it's not. It can't. I refuse to believe it. I refuse. He would not believe. He would not to the day he died. He believed wrestling was real.
Well, to just defense though, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. I don't. So I don't even consider wrestling fake. I consider it predetermined
Yeah.
because if
Mhm.
it's fake, people don't get really injured. There was real physicality happening. Yeah, you're calling your spots. You may not. You may not have really been punching your opponent. Some wrestlers did. That's just the way they wrestle. They, when they were still. But would you agree though that it's more predetermined than fake because of the physicality that
Totally.
is involved?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the perfect way to say it. It's predetermined. But the crazy thing is when I started my training in 1990, up until when I started working, even in early ECW 92, 93, what happened in 94 and 95 with Extreme, it changed the business. We were trained to work light and not hurt your opponent,
Right,
and work smooth and loose. Fast forward, from 90 to 95. Now, I went from working super light. Now I'm in the ring and I'm locking up with people, or I'm backed in a corner and I'm telling people, fucking hit me. Don't be
right,
scared. Just fucking hit me. Lay it in. Because it just, you, especially working in Philly or in those ECW style crowds, if you didn't work stiff, they'd call you out.
right.
So I'd rather take the shot and not get called out than, work light and get called a pussy.
Right. Now, did you play sports in high school or anything?
No.
Nope. Nope. At what point did you decide that you were going to be a professional wrestler, and what did your family think about that?
So in my teenage years, at that point, like my focus was like really on music.
Mhm.
It was all like the metal and hair band era and stuff like that. So I was like trying to be a rock star,
Right.
and um, my backup plan in life was to be a professional wrestler. Like watching NWA, Saturday afternoons at noontime on local TV every weekend, where every Saturday when they would end that show with that cliffhanger. Oh my God, we're out of time. We gotta go. I'm like on the edge of my seat and I'm like punching my pillow and I'm pumped and I'm hyped. And I was like, oh man, I want to do this. I want to fucking do this. And then around 1990, I was just like, I could see like the writing on the wall of the music business was, that era was kind of running its course, I felt. So I was like, well, let me find out about this wrestling thing. And I started hunting around, and I said, screw it, I'm going to do it. And I sold my guitars, sold my Marshall stack, and went to wrestling school.
Now, who trained you?
I went to the TWA, Tri-State Wrestling Alliance Wrestling School. My original trainers was Ron Shaw, the old WWF guy,
Yep.
and Larry Winters.
Okay.
And then Ron, due to his work schedule, he pulled out a couple months in, and it was just Larry. And then Larry got hurt probably about a year in. And then Johnny Hotbody and Tony the Hitman Stetson took over from the TWA and early ECW. And then TWA went out of business. Just unexpected. They pulled the plug. And the guy that really truly finished my training and got me my tryout with Todd in ECW was Jimmy Janetti.
Okay. Okay. Now, originally when you were watching ECW when you were younger, it was Eastern Championship Wrestling, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, talk to me through the I guess the landscape of Eastern Championship Wrestling going into Extreme Championship Wrestling, if you are aware of it.
So in those early Eastern days, when Todd and Larry Winters was the booker, and then Todd mainly took over to book over time. It was a very watered down product. Todd, because Tri-State Wrestling Alliance was the precursor to ECW. Tri-State Wrestling Alliance was what Extreme Championship Wrestling was. It was hardcore. It was blood. It was extreme. So when Joel Goodhart went out of business and Todd decided to take it over, rebranded as ECW, he wanted to really rebrand the whole product to try to distance himself from the TWA name. And it was a very watered down product, and I hated it. I thought the shows sucked. I thought the product sucked. And then he started trying to get a TV contract, and then he gets the TV contract. We're like, oh shit, we're going to be on TV. And then he called me up one day, said, hey, do you want to start doing some promotional work for me? Go into the towns before the shows and start, flyering and papering with posters and everything. I'm like, fuck yeah. So I go down to pick up the first batch for the first TV tapings. And he's like, sit down, I got to tell you something. And he drops the bomb on me that he hired Eddie Gilbert as the booker. And I'm like fucking blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this is like serious now.
Right.
And I was a huge Eddie Gilbert mark.
Mm-hmm.
So Eddie comes in, and it's now a different ball game because now we're on TV. Eddie Gilbert's our booker, and it's not like before where we had an idea, a problem, an issue. Call Todd, go down to his office, talk to him at a show. Now Todd's like, Eddie's the booker. My hands are tied. My hands are off. And Eddie didn't give two fucks. You know what I mean? He was just like, nah, I ain't playing this game. And the the next set of tapings, we did those, and then we came back for the next set of tapings like a month later, 2 months later, and we were gone after that. Like he slowly cleaned house of the local guys, the less
Right.
people like us that were still very, very green and lesser talent wise, and started bringing in like his Memphis guys or the big name guys, and the product was slowly starting to grow and evolve, and actually the second set of tapings is when Eddie brought his best friend Paul Heyman in, and Paul was like his assistant, and then everybody knows the story. Slowly, Paul was putting his stamp on things, and then Eddie quit, and then eventually Paul took over the book and becomes Eastern or Extreme Championship Wrestling, and then it just changed night and day. It changed the whole business, and it really, when those shows that I even before I became a Dudley again, when I was first let go in '93, I was pissed. I was bitter. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like part of this, helping grow this, and now I'm out, and I refused to watch the TV show. I was very angry, but then I started watching it, and I was like, fuck, this is good. This is good stuff. Like, and then once I got in there as a Dudley, and they would have a monitor set up in the back for the boys to sit around and watch. I was just like, man, I am part of history. This is fucking history. And I knew from then. And here we are 30 years later. And the reasons why I'm talking to you today is because I was a small piece of that history. I was one of the lowest guys on the fucking totem pole. And I've been truly blessed to be that low guy because I get to talk to people like you. I do these interviews probably once a week. People, they're curious and they want to know. Even from the little low guy, that was the little fat guy carrying his food around. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And, thankfully I looked like a Dudley. I saw the Dudley gimmick when it debuted and I said, fuck, I look like a Dudley. And then, sadly, Little Snot got in a car accident or something and he was out for a while. Richards called me up because I was friends with Richards. Richards said, hey, we got this gimmick and you'd be perfect for it. And the rest is history.
So I want to go back to Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. Did you have any type of a personal relationship with him? No.
Just at the shows, just at the,
all right. Now,
the
were you there? Because he didn't just, say, oh, I'm moving on to big better things. From my understanding, excuse me, he basically walked out. There was an argument, from understanding, between him and Heyman. Were you there when this happened?
No. At that point, I was already gone. I was already out. I was already out of the picture, and the argument was more, Eddie. From what I've heard, and it's no secret. I mean, Eddie had his own personal demons and issues, and it really he was. I mean, it sounds like he was really like with a lot of addicts. They get very paranoid, and it sounded like he was paranoid and he was constantly looking over his shoulder, and he was probably feeling like maybe Paul was going to take his spot, or that's how this business is. Especially then. It doesn't seem like it's that bad or that cutthroat today, but back then, motherfuckers will slice your throat and stab you in the back in a second. They didn't give a fuck. It could be your mother, your brother, your sister. It didn't matter. As long as they got their spot, that's all they cared about. Right. So maybe he felt Paul was going to do that to him. I don't know.
Yeah. I've always said there in professional wrestling, there's two big what ifs in the history of professional wrestling. One is what if Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert would have been able to live longer.
Dude,
and the other what if is what if Magnum TA would have never gotten into that car accident.
That's another one.
Yeah.
But picture this. Just picture Eddie. Same scenario happened. Eddie walked out. Eddie went on, moved on to life in Puerto Rico doing that, and wherever he ended up. But picture a scenario, that was in 93. Picture a scenario, say, in 1996, where the lights go out in the ECW arena and they come on and Eddie Gilbert's in the middle of that fucking ring. That fucking place would have. Come on. Come on.
Look, and a lot of hardcore wrestling fans or friends of mine think that I'm absolutely nuts when I say this, but this is a heel that I will always be willing to die on. If Eddie Gilbert wouldn't have tragically lost his life, if Magnum TA wouldn't have tragically had his career cut short, WWE as we know it now would not be WWE as we know it now. I'm not saying that WWE would have not, been successful. I think they still would have been successful, but I don't think they would have exploded the way they had if we still had those two major players in the game.
It would have definitely changed, the lot of courses and directions for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yep. So you were with Eastern Championship Wrestling from the dates that I got, and again, please correct me because the internet's always wrong.
Mm-hmm.
From 92 to 93.
Mm-hmm.
You then went to the indie circuit from 93 to 95. What was your run like on the indie circle during that time? Was there anything in the back of your head? 'Cause you said that you eventually got to watch the product, ECW product. Was it in the back of your head like, damn, I wish I could find my way back there? Were you focused on, I want to get to WWE, WCW? What was your mindset on the indie?
You know what? When we got let go in 93, my initial mindset was naturally, all right, I want to get work elsewhere. But also, too, I was like, the way my mind works is, fuck you, I'm coming for you now. So I put my own promotion together. And my plan was to be direct competition for ECW. Naturally, that didn't happen. Did I promote shows? Yes. But I didn't have the wallet the size of Todd Gordon to make things happen like they could. I'm very proud of the shows I promoted. I promoted, sporadically starting in 94, sporadically up until like here and there, up until 99. And then 99, I really got the bug and I was like, I'm making a run at this and making it happen or I'm out. And I started running monthly, and then I started running 2 times a month, and then I was 3 times a month, and then I was out of business because I lost so much fucking money. I had to shut the doors. But going back to 93, I ended up hooking up with Jim Kettner in Delaware and became part of the ECWA. So, I mean, again, I was so blessed because my career started with Joel Goodhart and the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, and I made so many friendships with all those guys and them early ECW guys. Then I go into ECW. I get let go from ECW, and then I go into ECWA and basically go under Jim Kettner's tutelage. And he was the one that really helped me launch my promotion and really taught me how to put shows together. And then when I got the deal to go back to ECW, then I had to say to Jim, look, I'm going back. I'm going to be a Dudley. And he's like, I can't use you. He goes, you're going to be doing that. He goes, they're not going to let you work for me. He goes, and it's just a conflict of interest because it's such a different style. He was running like very family oriented shows.
Right.
So, and up to this, Jim Kettner was such an amazing person in my life. And I was blessed again to learn under him and then to go back to ECW and learn under Paul. Just watching Paul. I used to watch Paul with an eagle eye every fucking show and see how he worked because he was so inspirational to me. And I was so intrigued and inspired by how he created this magic because it was absolute magic.
So, how did this happen? You going back to ECW now it's Extreme Championship Wrestling? Did you get a phone call? Is it something that you contacted somebody there? Said, "Hey, I want to come back."
Steve Richards called me.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. He called me and said, about the Dudley gimmick. We think you would fit perfectly. So it was all me and Steve Richards went through wrestling school together. So we went through wrestling school together at Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. We were working the indies together. We were good friends, and he looked out for me and got me back in.
Now, I want to ask you about Paul Heyman.
Hmm?
Depending on who you talk to, some guys have said that he was basically a sleazy car salesman. Other guys said that, you know, he was the best guy they've known in the business, the best guy to work for. What was your experience with Paul Heyman?
My personal experience was, you know, show up to the shows, watch them. When we would go over to his table to talk to him to get our thing, it was, hey, I want you guys to do this, do this. Chubby, take this chair shot. Chubby, go through this table. That was it. It was really not like a big thing. If I ever had it, a couple times I went over to him like, hey, Paul, can I talk to you for a second? Asked him a question about this, question about that, and he answered graciously, and always was very cordial to me, very nice. Um, I never had a problem with him. A lot of the people that worked with the company, he owed them a lot of money. And, a lot of people, when it comes to the money standpoint, in reality, he kind of fucked everybody. But from a business standpoint, he didn't have the money.
Right.
Now, I also feel, nothing for nothing, whatever. I don't know what his deal was with Vince or whatever, and I think he should have made some type of deal with Vince to get at least some of the money that was owed to them people, those guys that worked for free, for months, and some
Right.
people were owed upwards of $50,000 or more.
Wow.
He should have, made some type of deal with Vince to help recoup some of the money to get those people paid. That's what I feel, but I also, there is an ugly conniving side to Paul.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Now,
the
it
wrestling. It's the wrestling. Like I said earlier, motherfuckers will cut your throat and stab you in the back
right,
in the wrestling business. And Paul's that old school style. He learned from the best. He came up the ranks through that time and era where it was very cutthroat, and then he went to
right,
work for the biggest cutthroat, Vince McMahon.
right,
So
right. Now, did you ever have issues with getting paid working for?
I was never paid under Paul.
Oh, wow. So you were working for free under Paul?
I was never paid under Paul.
That to me is so crazy because my next question for you was about the crazy bumps that you guys
Well,
were
yeah.
taking.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like initially, at the end of the show, like at the end of the weekend, on Saturday night at the end of the show, because we were always working Fridays and Saturdays. So on Saturday night, everybody would go over to Paul and get their envelope, and I would go up to Paul looking for my envelope, and I get thanks, Chubby, and I get a handshake, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, and then after like 2, 3 months of that, I was kind of like, fuck it, because I was like, what are they going to pay me? $30, $40, $50. I'm on TV every week. I'm in magazines.
Right,
I go back to the hotel after every show. I am with different women. All my alcohol is paid for. I'm welcome in every room or bed. You know what I mean? Like I had all the perks like a rock star given
right,
to me. So at that point, I was like, do I rock the boat for $50 a week? Is it really going to make a difference? Or do I stay on it with the where everything's going, where the magic's happening, and be on TV? And I mean, it was crazy because literally, during the week in my personal life, I was delivering pizzas and I would show up to people's houses with pizza, and they're watching ECW, and there I am on TV, and they're like, the kids are like, "What the fuck?" Like, and then I'm signing autographs, or I'd be walking through the mall, and people are stopping me for autographs because they knew me in the area, who I was.
right.
So, eh, I dealt with that for, a year and a half. I got angry and pissed when Spike came in because I wanted to wrestle. And here I lived 15 minutes from the arena, and Spike comes in from California. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why won't they do something with me? I'm just here to eat, take chair shots, take bumps, and so after Spike came in, that was the end of the road for me. I hung out for maybe a month and a half, and then I just walked out and never came back.
Now, what was your relationship with Bubba and D-Von?
Great.
Off.
Great. All of them. I never had an issue with anybody. Even Spike. We get along. I love those guys. To this day, I still love them. We have a bond that can never be, we do have a brother bond. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
I'm sure they might look at it different, but in my eyes, we were truly put together as brothers, and I feel we have a brother bond for life.
Now, what I have is after, well, first off, why were you let go? I mean, did Paul give you a reason?
Oh no, I left and I never came back.
Okay. So
Yeah.
once you left,
I stopped coming to the shows.
Okay.
Because at that point in my life, I was starting to get into a serious relationship, and I was going through I don't know if you want to say like a midlife crisis at 26 years old, where I'm like, I need to get my act together. Am I going to like keep getting my head bashed in every weekend? I need to like get a real job, and I think I'm going to get married and have children and all that. Like, so I had all this stuff in my head going on, and I just like said, fuck wrestling. I cut my hair off and walked away from the business for 3 years.
So while you were with ECW, it's hard to imagine that you were able to avoid getting injured. I mean, ECW is pretty hardcore. Did you suffer any big injuries while you were with those?
Concussions. Quite a few concussions. Yeah. I mean, the chair shots. When I look back now and I see them chair shots, I cringe. Like, and I know why I have certain issues with things. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely there. And there was one night I got super bombed by the pit bulls, and they literally. I just remember having my arms draped around. I don't remember. I know it was Bubba on one arm. It might have been Sign Guy on the other arm, and I was limp, and they were just pulling my limp legs to the back. And I mean, I was out of it. I was completely out of it.
Were you with ECW at the time that Steve Austin joined?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was he like working with him?
Excellent. Austin was awesome. Like, it was funny. I was a huge Austin mark from day one, because as I was going through wrestling school, I used to go to my local magazine place, once, twice a week. This place I used to go to from the time I was a kid. I used to still go there, and I would look at all the wrestling magazines and buy my wrestling magazines every week. And I was following Austin's career because I loved the whole angle that was going on with him and Chris Adams, his teacher, and how they brought Chris's ex-wife in, and she was with Steve, and then Steve ends up hooking up with her, and they get married. Like, the whole thing was just crazy to me, but I loved that whole angle, and I was following it along because I'm like, fuck, this dude's fresh out of wrestling school, and he's in the magazines already. And then, a year later, I would still be going to that newsstand, and then I would start seeing, the results of shows, and then my name's getting in there. I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Right. So when you decided that you leave, you wasn't coming back, did Dudley, D-Von, Paul, did anyone call you and say, hey, man, what's going on? Wow,
Nobody.
Really?
Nobody.
Did that affect you in any type of a negative way, or were you glad?
Oh, yeah. No, I was, at that point, I've gone through many angry and bitter stages with the wrestling business, as a lot of people have. And at that point, I turned off wrestling, and I turned off, especially ECW, until I guess it was about a year later, the pay per view. Friends of mine were having like a pay per view party, and they invited me over. That was the first time I sat and watched ECW. Was barely legal pay per view, and honestly, at that point, I was so happy for them. I really was. They deserved it. They earned it. And everything they did from there on, I was a fan. I started watching again and just became a fan of what they were doing. I was cheering them on.
So you left the business, and you said you were out of the business for 2 or 3 years. What were you
Mhm.
doing during those 2 or 3 years that you were out of the business?
I was trying to establish a real life.
Then
Got
you
got
eventually,
married, had my first child. Um, yeah, bought a house, like all the adult stuff.
right, right. Now, what made you decide to get back into wrestling 2 or 3 years later?
um, because what happens when I watch wrestling is I get that bug.
Mhm.
I want to get involved, and people kept asking me to run shows, promote shows, and then I had a show that was offered to me, and I was making a little money off of it, and I said, well, let me run this show and see what happens, and I ran it, and I was totally bitten by the bug, and I said, well, let's make a go at it. Let's see if we can do something, and we were making a little buzz, but especially when ECW closed its doors, I was like, wow, this is really going to be my time now. This is my competition's gone. Let me see if I can really make a buzz. But I just didn't have the money to do it. I was,
Right.
like I said, at that point, I was managing and delivering pizzas at a pizza shop, um, and trying to be a father. And now I have a stepson, a daughter. I had another child on the way. It was just wait. It was too much and
Right.
too much money going out the door that I couldn't afford to do anymore.
Did you ever think about or even move forward and try to get in with WCW or WWF at the time after you left ECW?
Nah, I figured, nobody was looking for me in the when I left. Nobody was looking for me when I left, and I didn't think they needed to look for me. You know, there was no reason. The only time I've ever tried, it was actually recently, after um, I just did this big TWA show that we did back in May. I said, you know what? Fuck it. Let me take a shot, and I applied for a writing producer job with AEW, and I actually had Todd Gordon backing me on it,
Sure.
um, and I got an email back like 2 days later that there was a hiring freeze on the position to check back in a few months. But that's the only time I ever tried to get a job with any major company.
Well, I gotta tell you what, man. I wish the guy at AEW would call you because they need somebody creative.
Hey,
That's a whole other podcast.
I heard they did pretty good the other day, so I don't watch I don't watch AEW at all, um, you know, but
Yeah,
I hear.
their pay-per-views are always just absolutely fantastic. It's their weekly programs that they suffer with. So from what my research showed up, you eventually went to Liberty Outdoor Wrestling. Is that correct?
That was the promotion I was running.
That you were running. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Uh, and you left the business completely in 2002. Is that correct?
I left it in 2002, and I didn't watch wrestling for 20 years.
Wow. Wow.
So there's
Wow.
like a whole 2 decade span of I really don't know what
So
the
what
hell
happened?
happened in the business.
Yeah. Have you spoken to Paul Heyman since you left ECW?
Mm.
Nope.
The only one in the higher up positions that I talked, like I said, Todd Gordon, who I was, I hear from at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. Um, I've seen Tommy Dreamer probably a dozen times over the last 10 years. Always cordial, always great with me. Um, that's it from like the higher up guys.
Yep. Yep. What about you, Stevie Richards? You guys still friends?
We were texting back and forth about 9 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was, because I was trying to get him to appear at the TWA show. Because we did a convention in the afternoon and then we had the show at night. And I wanted him at the convention because that's where he trained at, was TWA. But he turned it down.
Yeah. Wow. Uh, have you ever heard of the Cauliflower Alley Club?
I'm a member.
You're a member.
Hmm.
Well, shit, man. Are you coming to the reunion?
I am not. Sadly, I am not. Actually, Cauliflower Alley I've heard about for years, but never truly knew the whole real gist of it. Rich Engling, the vice president,
Mhm.
he was part of the
Great guy.
TWA show. Yeah, love
Okay.
Rich. So Rich was one of the referees at our show, and we had a meeting at Joel Goodhart's house back in October, and Rich was there, and Rich gave his speech and explained exactly what it was, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I know what it is, and I signed up as a member. So yeah.
Awesome. Uh, are you back keeping up with the product now?
I watch WWE.
Like
That's all I watch
WWE?
right now. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. What do you think about Evolution?
I loved it. I was so happy and proud of the girls. Um, I hope they do more. I really do. I do a recap, WWE recap shows for Raw, the PLEs, etc. And I say it every time. The girls are out working the guys. They really are.
Right. Right. Yep. I hear you, man. It was great. Evolution was so damn
That
good.
that fucking Rhea Ripley Io Sky match. Holy fuck. I mean, seriously. 5-star match. And, it's crazy. Like I was saying the other day on the recap show, back at WrestleMania, the three-way between Rhea, Io, and Bianca Belair. Dude, I was literally sitting watching in tears. I was so moved. I was like, this is probably one of the greatest matches I've ever witnessed in my life. Like, I'm so blown away and
Right.
moved by this. It was absolute fire. And then I see this match with those two the other night. I'm like, either one of those matches is match of the year. Really.
Absolutely. I'm a big AEW and WWE fan. And AEW's pay per view we did the recap on, and very rarely have I given this rate, but I gave this. I gave Alvin Texas an A plus. It was damn good.
That's
Every match,
I haven't heard a bad
great.
thing about it.
But I have to tell you that that Rio Ripley and Io Sky match at Evolution blew any match on that pay per view
Really?
completely out of the water. That's
Wow.
how good Rhea Ripley and Io
Yeah.
Sky was. And we're going to be talking about this tonight, right after this show. I have the recap to do at
Okay.
7:45. Not to give out any spoiler, guys, but yeah, I mean that Evolution show was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for joining me on this podcast,
Dude, thank
man.
you. Anytime.
You
Anytime.
are such a great guy. You mentioned about your podcast. Tell everyone when you do the podcast and where they can find it at.
Chubby Dudley Official on Facebook and YouTube. I just joined up on TikTok last week, so I'm on TikTok now at Chubby Dudley. Sign up, subscribe, ring the bell, get all the notifications. I got tons of stuff I'm working on. We do Raw recaps, we do all the PLE recaps, Saturday Night Main Event, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, check us out, tune in, have some fun. We let people come on with us from time to time. The chat is always open, taking everybody's questions and all. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys do that. Also, please subscribe to get your bell rung. I have some more amazing interviews. You can find me on Facebook, KG Landry. I put everybody that I'm interviewing. You can find it on there. So again, please subscribe. Come back at 7:45. Myself, Mark, and Gerald and Kurt will be doing the recap of Monday Night Raw and as well as Evolution. Till then, you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Again, thank you so much, my friend. You are welcome
Thank
to
you,
come
dude.
on anytime you want. You're an
Appreciate that.
amazing guy. I really
Back at you. Thank you.
appreciate it. So you guys have a good one.